Boy.
At the winter solstice.
In a town called Battleac.
The troubleseekers were
Beat to a pulp.
Probably aggressively so.
One of their party, the burliest, illiterate,
big, dumb,
idiotic,
Orc.
called
Cooper, said,
Hey,
I got the perfect song for everybody.
And Kaladin was like,
Cooper, it's not happening.
it was a joyous tune.
At that, the group sat up.
And it worked.
duh. And
With the heroes newly inspired. Eloni
Said to herself,
Bunk.
And that is the end of the story.
You have my undivided attention.
Welcome to the story, Winter Solstice. On the evening of Winter Solstice, a group of courageous adventurers, known as the Troubleseekers, slowly made their way into a brightly lit tavern called Cooper's Place. The group was exhausted after fighting for several days in the woods outside Battletree. All of them slumped into chairs around a large table. Upon seeing the bloody and war-torn faces, the barkeep immediately got up and started to pour each of them an ale. See, the Troubleseekers were well known around here and were appreciated for all the things that they'd done to protect the townspeople over the years. The burliest of the group, Eloni, contemplated the wariness that only a ruthless, thick-necked, simple-minded barbarian could feel. She looked around and saw her comrades in various stages of post-battle blues. Knowing she wasn't smart with words, but she had strong elbows, she firmly nudged Kaladin, who was known for some of the most inspiring pep talks ever. She raised an eyebrow, gestured toward the dreary group, and grunted, "Yo." Kaladin attempted to raise a finger to say something inspiring, but was just too tired. Eloni took a deep breath, bolstered her confidence, and cleared her beastly throat. Began to sing. Eloni yells, Ormond spells, yells and spells all day. The Troubleseekers always stride and fiercely justly slay. Kiana heals, Red reveals, heals and reveals all day. The Troubleseekers always stride and justly fiercely slay. Kiana hunts, Kaladin blunts, hunts and blunts all day. The Troubleseekers always stride and fiercely justly slay. Micah jumped in, the group they're in, jumped in, we're in all day. The Troubleseekers always stride and fiercely justly slay. At that, the group sat up. All of them felt a little lighter and less wary. They looked around at one another, smiling. They raised their pints and cheersed to surviving the brutal year and making it to another winter solstice.
all right, so this one's gonna do it, I think. I don't remember much. Okay. Welcome to the story, The Winter Solstice. Boy. Okay. In a small tavern in Battletree named Cooper's Place, a group of heroes exhaustedly stumbles in and sits around a table. This group of heroes was known as the Troubleseekers, and they were extremely tired for having been fighting for several days in the forest outside of Battletree. On seeing their faces, their war-torn and bloody faces, the tavern keeper poured them all around a ale. You see, the Troubleseekers were well known and respected in the area, and were for all of the good that they had done in keeping the townsfolk safe. One of their party, the burliest, Eloni, looked around at her companions and looked at their weariness and said, and contemplated it for a moment, you know, in the way and only a thick-necked, stupid, brutal, illiterate, idiotic, moronic barbarian could, and said to herself, I don't really have a way with words, but I've got strong elbows. So she elbowed Kaladin, who has been known for the most inspiring speeches in the world. Said, "Yo," as she raised an eyebrow and looked at the group. Kaladin raised a hand, began to say something, and then dropped his hand. He was just too tired. Eloni cleared her beastly throat and began to sing. Let's see if I remember how this goes. Eloni yells, Ormond spells, yells and spells all day. The trouble seekers do something and fiercely, justly slay. Kiana hunts, Galadin smokes blunts, hunts and blunts all day. The trouble seekers do something and fiercely, justly slay. Ravani stabs, Red just blabs, stabs and blabs all day. The trouble seekers do something and fiercely, justly slay. Mike is here. I don't know the rest of the song. And fiercely, justly slay. I think that was the song. That's close enough. And let's see. Oh, at this, the group, they looked around at each other. They perked right up and hoisted a toast to another year survived, another winter solstice achieved. Good luck.
This is not good news because I've had 2 huge glasses of whiskey and also gin, so I apologize in advance. Here we go. This is a story of the winter solstice. In the town of Battletree, the war-torn and bloodied trouble seekers stumble into a tavern known as Cooper's Place. And they slump into a table, and the bartender eyes them and decides to buy them around as he notes their battle-weary demeanor. And Eloni, the half-orc barbarian, looks around, and she notices, as only a thick-necked, stupid, moronic, a really stupid barbarian could, her companion's weariness, and since she's not known for her eloquence, but she does have strong elbows, she reaches over and elbows Kaladin, who is known for his extremely inspiring speeches. And Kaladin raises his hand and realizing that he's supposed to give an inspiring speech, and he starts to give a speech, but he is just too tired, and so he doesn't. And seeing that her companions need some morale, Eloni clears her beastly throat and begins to sing to the tune of Jingle Bells, and I don't remember any of the song. Eloni yells, Ormond spells, the trouble seekers fiercely slay. Kiana hunts and Red smokes. No, Kaladin smokes blunts, hunts and blunts all day. Ravani stabs and Red does something. They fiercely, justly slay. Something else happens here, but I don't remember the words. Oh, something about Micah, but I can't remember the rest. And that is the end of the story.
Well, we know how this is going to go, so let's not belabor the point. Our story begins in the winter solstice in Battletree when the trouble seekers made their way to an inn called, I believe it was Cooper. Coopers. Um, and and they are war torn and battle weary. They are in bad shape, tired, bedraggled, what have you. And Eloni looks around at her companions and sees that everyone is just, their spirits are in the dump. They need some inspiration. And she notices this as only a thick-necked, moronic, extremely stupid, dumb, idiot barbarian can, which is intuitively or something. But knowing that she isn't the most eloquent, but that she does have the strongest elbows, she elbows Kaladin, to pushing him to perhaps make a speech that will lift everyone's spirits and make them feel strong and vigorous and ready for anything again, inspired even. But Kaladin has nothing left in the tank. He can't do it. It's not happening. So, Eloni takes it upon herself to bring cheer back to the trouble seekers, and she does so by singing a barbaric song to the tune of Jingle Bells, which goes something like, and I'm going to fuck this one right up, probably harder than Drew did. Eloni yells, Ormond spells, the trouble seekers slay. Ravani stabs something, I don't know. At some point, Kaladin smokes blunts, and da 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 da. Also, Red does something, which is fantastic, and I'm sure Kiana does as well. So I'm just gonna make those up. Red prays hard, Kiana grows yards, and Micah's in there too. Hey, that's.
Hello, and welcome to Narrative Telephone. This go-around, we find the Trouble Seekers during the winter solstice in Battletree. And they are all real ragged and worn down. They're gathered in a tavern called Cooper's, possibly. And we come across Eloni, who is looking around at her companions and seeing that everyone is just beat to a pulp. Nobody has much left in them. And being the thick-necked, moronic, dumb, idiot orc that she is, she uses her insight somehow to realize that the Trouble Seekers need a little bit of inspiration. Her Eloni, with the biggest elbows of the entire crew, uses one of said elbows to bonk Kaladin. Say, hey, I think we need some cheering up. Maybe some inspiration, if you know what I mean. And so Kaladin, who clearly has very little in him, does his best to muster a song to the tune of Jingle Bells, which I only partially received. So here goes. Eloni smells... No. Shoot. Yeah, maybe Eloni smells, Ormond spells, possibly Ravani. Well, it was lost in translation to the sands of time, but we know that Red did something awesome. Kaladin probably did too. Ravani most likely stabbed, and it was a joyous tune. Supposedly Kaladin smoked blunts. I don't know. Not quite sure. And that's all.
Hello and welcome to Narrative Telephone. This go around, we find the Trouble Seekers in Battletree in a tavern called Cooper's at the winter solstice. They're all looking pretty beat up. They've been through some stuff, and so Eloni, being the big, dumb, thick-headed, idiotic, moronic half-orc that she is, decides that this group needs some inspiration, these trouble seekers, because they've sought trouble and found it. So Eloni, having the biggest elbows in the group, uses one of said elbows to give Kaladin a nudge and tell him, they're looking pretty bad. I think they could use some inspiration. So Kaladin comes up with a little song to the tune of Jingle Bells, it being the winter solstice and all. And well, the song went a little something like Eloni smells, Ormond spells, Rainy probably stabbed. Nothing else is remembered now, so we're gonna move on. So anyway, after this lovely jingle, Kaladin probably performed it amazingly, but that was lost somewhere in translation. So with the heroes newly inspired, thanks to Eloni's orcish insight, that's it.
So, on winter solstice, the trouble seekers were on an adventure through. The cat is swatting at the screen at my face. Oh, dude. So yes, they're on an adventure and in a town called Battleaxe or something like that. And they come upon a tavern called Cooper's, where once they get inside and get settled and stuff, Eloni notices that the troop is looking pretty down. And so she elbows the other guy, and is like, hey, Kaladin. She elbows Kaladin and is like, hey buddy, don't you think everybody could use a little inspiration? What do you say you do something about that? And Kaladin's like, okay, I got the perfect song for everybody. So he sings them a version of Jingle Bells that's kind of disparaging to everybody. Like the first line I think is Eloni smells, and I didn't catch any of the rest of it. And apparently everybody loved the song and it worked. And they were all chipper and inspired and ready to go on their continue their adventure. And I think that was it.
I just want to say, Rachel, I know that there was a song in here somewhere, but it sure as hell didn't make it to me. So on winter solstice, I think they called it the troop, but I'll say the trouble seekers, managed to make their way to what was told as Battleaxe, and I'm certain it is Battletree, where they holed up in a tavern called Cooper's. And Eloni noticed that everyone was looking a little down and dour, and so she nudged Kaladin in the ribs, probably aggressively so, and said, hey, why don't you inspire us with inspiring words and leadership qualities. And Kaladin was like, oh, of course, duh. And proceeded to stand up and, in a tune that was reminiscent of Jingle Bells, sing everybody's praises. But I don't know what it is, and I tried to come up with some on the spot, and it didn't work. So I'm imagining it's like Red praised the day away, and Eloni sneaks and hides, or Ravani sneaks and hides, and yeah, and I'm sure it was amazing, but I didn't get any of it. So I'll just say that everybody felt refreshed, inspired, and they went to bed happily ever after until Orcus came and killed them all. The end.
That I'll say. What do I say, Carol?